That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Good morning, I'm Peter Andre alongside the wonderful Ellie Costello, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Yes, really good to have your company with us this morning. We're going to jumpstart your weekend with an action-packed show.
Yeah, we've all been gripped by the ITV drama Alan Bates versus the Post Office, but questions remain. How will all these postmasters be cleared, and what is next?
Yeah, we know lots of you are angry about that.
Yeah.
Love Island All Stars is a new series. It starts on Monday, and quite a worrying trend has arisen with young girls trying to get the Love Island look. They've been taking diet pills. Do we need to be worried about this with children watching the new series of Love Island?
Yeah, and apparently as young as 10 as well, so we'll go into that. My great friend, the superstar Italian chef Aldo Zilli, will be cooking up a storm with Ellie and I as he celebrates 40 years in the business and shares his hot tips for Veganuary.
Yes, we can't wait for that. It's an absolutely jam-packed show, isn't it? And this show is nothing without you. We want to hear your opinion on all of the stories that we are talking about today. Do get in touch with us. We're going to try and read out as many as we can. The address is gbviews@gbnews.com.
But before we do anything else, Aaron Armstrong has all your news headlines.
Thank you very much, and very good morning to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB Newsroom. The United States has carried out a new attack against Houthi rebels in Yemen. It comes a day after Britain and the US launched dozens of strikes on the Iran-backed group's positions. The Houthis have vowed to continue targeting ships in the Red Sea to show their support for Palestinians in Gaza. Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has warned Iran to ensure its proxies cease and desist because, in his words, the world is running out of patience. Military analyst Sean Bell says America's strike was strategic, focusing on specific sites.
The US unilaterally did the strike last night. It's either that following yesterday, the Houthis launched another missile almost as an act of petulance, and it looks either in response to that the US has struck this radar site, or after the strikes on Thursday night, battle damage assessment, they will have looked and said, one of the radar sites is still survived the attack, and therefore they decided to use USS Carney to use another Tomahawk missile to actually take it out. It does seem to be a very surgical, measured response, and it is a unilateral response last night.
Tax experts say the Post Office could be facing insolvency for failing to pay up to £100 million in tax. They say the company claimed £934 million of tax relief on compensation paid to branch managers caught up in the Horizon scandal. Tax Policy Associates, a non-profit organisation, has described the practice as outrageous and potentially unlawful. The Post Office says its financial information is appropriate and accurate. Hundreds of staff were convicted after faulty software made it appear money was missing from their branches. Lawyer Nigel Hudgell represented some of the Post submasters.
We've got an IT system that clearly was flawed, but people made decisions on the back of that. So those people need to be held to account. I think we've seen some people come out this week, some high-profile individuals express regret, in some instances apologise, gestures around handing back honours. I think the feeling within the people that I speak to is some of this is rather late in the day, it's forced.
The first Channel migrants of the year have arrived in Dover. Border Force intercepted a vessel carrying around 50 people this morning. It's the first small boat crossing since the 16th of December, the longest period without any migrant arrivals for almost 4 years. It's thought bad weather has deterred more people from making the dangerous journey. A huge police presence is expected as pro-Palestinian protesters march through central London later. They've warned demonstrators, though, they'll face arrest if they intentionally push the limit on placards and slogans. Thousands of people are expected to gather around lunchtime as part of a global day of action for Palestinians. The Metropolitan Police says forces from outside the capital will also be on duty. And parts of the UK are set for more snow and sub-zero temperatures this weekend. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings for much of the north of Scotland from midnight until Monday. It says it will be cloudy and cool across England and Wales, but temperatures could reach as low as -4 degrees in northern Scotland. There's also a warning of travel disruption affecting roads and railways. This is GB News. We're on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. That's it for the moment. Now it's over to Ellie and Pete.
The US has carried out a new attack on Houthi site in Yemen. This comes a day after wider attacks led by the US and the UK on Thursday evening.
Yes, the Houthis have vowed that the US and the UK strikes will not go without punishment or retaliation. Well, joining us now to discuss what this means for us in Britain and what the impact on this will be on international relations is GB News reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, really good to see you this morning. Lots of people getting in touch and emailing and saying, why are we getting involved? Why are the British getting involved in the Red Sea?
Well, first and foremost, it's to defend the freedom of maritime navigation through the Red Sea and into the Suez Canal. This is the most crucial shipping route and transit route for the goods that we buy and sell across Europe, but of course, particularly in Britain. That's the main focus for the Royal Navy. But also, they're just defending their assets in the region. We have a destroyer and a frigate in the Red Sea, and HMS Diamond has come under attack several times in the area. So first and foremost, really, it's that defence of the freedom of navigation, those economic transfers from the Far East, East Asia into Europe. But also, crucially, it's a matter of self-defence. It's about keeping HMS Diamond clear and safe in the water, because for so many days now, there have been repeated final warnings from the US, from the UK, and from that maritime coalition in the Red Sea. If you keep launching those drones and missile attacks, as the Houthis have been doing since October, then we will have to respond. Well, those final warnings finally reached their crescendo 2 days ago. But as we've seen, that attack hasn't necessarily stopped the Houthi capabilities, and responses are ongoing.
I mean, obviously, this has been going on for a while, but a lot of people are only hearing about this for the first time now. I mean, it's a very worrying situation. What do you think is going to happen from here? Where do you think this could go?
Well, the US and the UK have said that their strikes are limited but significant. They are surgical airstrikes. They launch maybe some 80 Tomahawk missiles from the destroyers and also some jets from Cyprus. The RAF flew down from the eastern Mediterranean. It's quite a limited attack. Now, the Houthi rebels who have been in Yemen operating almost in power since 2015, they endured a significant bombing campaign from Saudi Arabia from 2015, hundreds of warplanes, hundreds of thousands of troops. So this is no ragtag militia that's just going to fall over at a few missiles fired by the US and the UK. It's almost certainly the case that they're going to continue their naval blockade in the Red Sea, because a lot of the assets that they're using are very light, they're very agile. Quite frankly, they're resistant to the kind of bombing that we've done so far. We're destroying $20,000 drones with a missile attack that could cost $500 million. That's an estimated cost that I've seen from security experts from the attack we saw 2 nights ago. Now, clearly, that's not sustainable. So I think, troublingly for strategy and defence analysts, both in the Pentagon and in Whitehall, they're almost certainly very conscious that these attacks will continue, because you can't destroy all of those assets. And we also need to be conscious of the ground in Yemen. It's a mountainous country. These people can hide very effectively. The Shia militia, they're backed by Iran. Again, they're not a ragtag mob. These are serious, well-trained warriors who've been fighting very effectively against the largest Arab coalition of militaries for the best part of a decade. And if people think that one night of Tomahawk missiles and a few jets from the RAF are going to stop them, well, I think they're going to see quite another alternative panning out very soon. It's a very stressful And well, very disturbing situation because, of course, that will have an impact on inflation. That could have an impact on the oil prices. This is probably the biggest test that the UK and the US has faced in the Middle East since that withdrawal from Afghanistan, and it's not clear that they're really able to match it just right now.
Yeah, it's a very worrying situation. Charlie Peters, thank you for bringing us up to speed on what is a developing situation in the Red Sea. Thank you very much indeed. I want to bring in Alex Armstrong now, political commentator and friend of the programme, may I add. Welcome this morning. We're going to be going through some of the stories of the week, really, with you. Of course, we've got to talk about the Post Office scandal. And the latest line, really, is from the Post Office. It's in The Guardian today, saying that the Post Office lawyers can't work late and they can't work weekends, and therefore it is going to take a little bit longer to get to the truth of this.
It is unbelievable. My goodness, if this hasn't gone on long enough, I mean, we're talking decades at this point, these poor victims. You guys must have seen the ITV drama, or at least some clips of it.
Incredible, yes.
And I think that really brings to life the stories of those who've been seriously affected by this, innocent people, let's remember. And now the lawyers are saying they can't even not only work weekends, but can't even work late. Maybe they're just going home at 5 o'clock and clocking off. I think that's really shocking. And I know that the Parliamentary Affairs Committee and others are going to be holding them accountable on this. But we really have to get this done. Pass the legislation, get those convictions overturned. And let's see some justice being served.
And real justice. I mean, you think about these people that have suffered for years, and some of them will never get their lives back. We know some of them have taken their lives, but also, you know, people have suffered for years. So then you wonder what money is enough in compensation. What's going to bring back all those years that they've lost, and all the fear that they had from the public and people, you know, judging them, and it's a terrible situation.
You can't put a price on it, really, can you?
You can't. I mean, like there was a victim the other day in the papers saying she's lost so much money, not just from the scandal of the Horizon scandal itself, but also losing business, not being able to work, being stuck at home, essentially, becoming hermited. It's absolutely horrendous. And to say that these well-paid lawyers can't just put a few extra hours in to get this done, I'm sure the Post Office wants to resolve
Well,
this
you would
too.
think the Post Office would want to see an end of this debacle. You'd want to, you know, we know that reputation means so much to the Post Office. They are, or have been in the past, one of the most trusted brands in Britain. You would think they'd want to do the right thing by the postmasters, but it doesn't. It seems as though there's this culture of delay.
Yeah, it's negligence, isn't it? It's negligence. And, you know, I think as well people have seen the interviews over the last few days with several politicians now coming to the forefront of this. Ed Davey obviously coming under a lot of pressure now that Paula Venables has handed her CB in. She's sort of dealt with, I think, from the public's perspective. Ed Davey, you know, Post Office Affairs Minister, highly responsible in this whole scandal, basically refusing to apologise. He's saying it's an apology, but it's sort of not an apology. And now
didn't meet Alan Bates, did he?
Not at all, exactly. So this sort of stuff is really agitating the public, and I think politicians and people working at the Post Office, very well compensated people, and people who are highly have a lot of authority in this matter, should just start saying, we're sorry, we made a lot of mistakes, we need to rectify that, and that's all the public want to see.
You can see why everyone's getting angry and angry, and the more this goes on, the more it's, you know...
Yeah.
It's gone on long enough.
Everybody up.
It's gone on for decades. It's cost people their lives. It's cost the Post Office its reputation, what used to be one of the most highly regarded institutions in this country. Quite frankly, I think people want this to be over and they want to see justice.
Yeah, I think you're right. You'll have a view on this. gbviews@gbnews.com. Do let us know. We'll read out as many as we can throughout the programme. OK, Charlie, stay in for this one, because I think we'll have an opinion on this as well. This is the best boozer in the United Kingdom. It has been named. It's Tamworth Tap. Second year in a row it's won this. It's a community pop-up brewery, apparently. Now, we all know we love our pubs in this country. What makes the perfect pub for you?
Oh, yeah, you see, I'd love to go. So I was just reading about it in the group. This looks great, doesn't it? I mean, so one of the reasons they've won this award from CAMRA is because of their community engagement. They don't just serve beer and pints, but they're out there getting people in doing activities, having engagements with the elderly community. They're doing a lot of amazing things. And for a pop-up pub that's been around for just a few years, that's an amazing example to set. I'd love to see more of that across the country.
So it's community for you, that community feel in the pub.
That's what pubs are all about, isn't it?
Yeah,
we
I
can
think
drink
you're
anywhere, but I think when you go to a pub, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the people in there. And if you go to a good pub, you know when you walk.
You know you're there.
Let's not forget, through COVID, there was this whole fear of pubs shutting down. And there was this, remember that whole story that just kept building and building, and it was a really difficult time. So it's nice to have some good news.
Nice to see pubs doing well, definitely. Charlie, what makes a good boozer for you?
It's so easy. One telly, one jukebox, one pool table, and a wide selection of lagers. Okay.
Oh, it's entertainment for you.
Any more than that, and it's overkill.
Overkill. So, do you like a traditional? You call them
a sort of halfway house, I suppose. I don't want to go all down the traditional route of a wood fire, because I want to watch the sport every now and again, right?
Yeah, right.
And but a jukebox, I think, is a crucial touch. You see them in London boozers, but when you go out of town, you miss that, I think.
It's really sad. I think we've seen the surgence of very bourgeois pub-style places, and whilst I can enjoy that every now and then, we all like a bit of the finer things. I do really love the traditional pub. I don't
want to eat at a pub. I don't want to be served lunch.
This is how
I go for the food.
A gastro pub.
I remember
I'm a gastropub gal.
Not my thing.
As a kid, pubs were completely different. You wouldn't go there to eat. It was not a thing. But now, I guess it's...
But you must go for the food now.
I do love a bit of food.
Because you don't drink, do you, now?
I don't drink anymore, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate being in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because there's an atmosphere about it that's amazing.
So what would do it for you, then? What would be a good pub? What makes
I think
a pub?
all of the above. I think, maybe not the lagers as much, but I just like, it's a bit of entertainment, food, it's everything. It's the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's very British.
The jukebox would kill it off for me. I don't think I could listen to that in the pub. That's the only thing I wouldn't like.
In the pub.
Oh, my local has one. They're absolute dream.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's vital. It's vital.
Next will be karaoke for you.
You don't want someone putting it on in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday. But generally speaking, they're crucial bits of...
And are they old classics?
Yeah, old classics, absolutely.
No, I don't. I think if anyone started singing karaoke, I'd be out the door. You wouldn't catch me listening to that. Look, bit of a U-point turn here. Obviously, very, very sad news this week about Sven-Goran Eriksson. Just 75 years old, I believe. Only got 1 year to live now, so it's very, very sad news. But Eureka Johnson has been speaking out about Sven-Goran Eriksson. Alex, do you want to tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, this is a very, very strange set of circumstances. Obviously, we all know Sven-Goran Eriksson from that A-star smashing team that he had with David Beckham and others. And Eureka put up a post. Obviously, they were lovers. They were together for a period of time, and clearly it didn't go very well and it didn't end very well for the two of them. She put up a post on Instagram, and in that post she said, "Oh, look at me, how young I am, blah blah blah," and then she put PSA. I'm not going to say anything about Sven, but he wasn't a decent person.
Very odd.
I know things happen in relationships. Everyone's had a bad relationship at one point in their lives, but to publicly say that about someone who's just said, "I'm probably going to die in a year," and to do it the same day that he said it, that for me is quite shocking.
And I know Ulrika, and I kind of wonder. You kind of hope that she didn't mean it like that.
Yes.
That's what you kind of hope. But then you're reading it thinking, why have you said that? And what's behind it? I mean, I found that really uncomfortable to read.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, all of us have had bad relationships, but to put it out there so publicly, I think maybe back in the day when there was a breakup, the papers might have been interested in that story, but because of his diagnosis, and he's got kids and a family, I just think it's out of touch.
What's that phrase? If you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's what my mother would tell me. And I think this might apply to Eureka. Yes, maybe in this situation. It is very, very sad news about Sven-Goran Eriksson. Charlie, what are your memories of Sven-Goran Eriksson? You must have watched him being manager of England.
Yeah.
Sad news.
Well, I was born in Sweden, so I have I've got a youthful fascination with standing footballing legends. No, sorry, moved to England very shortly afterwards. I
hope that was Sweden.
I could order a cinnamon bun if I needed to, but polite not.
That's what you need.
They're all English speakers there too, which is a delight. But yeah, all of those kind of joyous, youthful memories of almost footballing glory will be, forever the memory that he leaves with us.
Yeah, I mean, for so many of us, he is synonymous, isn't he, with England? And
it was my first memory of a proper big England game when I was really
Yeah, me
old
too.
enough to understand it and appreciate it. So I remember there was the song, the Sven-Goran Eriksson song. I can't remember who did that song. Sven. I'm not going to sing it.
Go on, do it.
No,
do it,
please
do
don't
it.
make me do that. I'll never live it down for my friends.
He's a lovely geezer, but don't forget that he's from Sweden.
That's it. There you go.
Getting you ready
Thank
for the
Charlie.
karaoke in the pub.
But, you know, good memories, in my opinion. Good memories.
And I think we've got time just for this last story in The Sun. It's a picture story. I hope we've got it. I want to make tea.
Oh, I love this.
This is one of Pete's
I
ones he
love
chose
this.
this morning. Queen star Freddie Mercury has appeared on a teaspoon. Have we got a picture of this?
You usually
yes.
see Jesus appearing.
Yes, you read my mind.
But he is
Peter.
the Jesus of music.
That
You know
is
what?
uncanny, to be fair.
What I'd really love to see is people write in and give us some quotes of one of his songs.
Yeah.
So we've obviously got I Want to Make Tea, that's brilliant. But is there any others that we can think of? I'm not going to put you all on the spot now.
please.
If you can write in and tell us, that'd be great.
I love that, though, when you see... Have you ever had that when something... Like, you see the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast or something? I mean, it does happen, doesn't it? But if we get this picture up again, that is uncanny. If you're listening on the radio, it is Freddie Mercury in his kind of...
The iconic pose.
Iconic pose, yeah.
It's
the
that doesn't
The
fit Michael
pose.
Jackson as well.
But, you know,
On the back of a teaspoon.
If you hadn't said Freddie Mercury, my thought would have gone Michael Jackson. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I also see
Could
that.
be MJ.
Eyes of the Beholder.
Okay,
be
imagine
MJ.
seeing the Virgin Mary on virgin olive oil.
Oh, that would be good, actually.
Right.
We should all keep
That's
our
extra virgin oil.
We should
Okay,
all
forget
keep
that.
our eyes peeled on that. Good one,
Yeah.
Pete. We'll ignore that one.
Ignore it.
Apparently, it was a watermark. It's water spot.
There you go.
Incredible, isn't it?
The world works mysterious ways.
Well, really good to see you both, Alex and Charlie. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for going
guys,
through
so
some of
much.
the stories of the papers today.
Right, coming up as Love Island All-Stars hits our screens on Monday, the fake bacon cosmetic surgery inquiries may start shooting up. Now, do we need to worry about our kids tuning in to watch it?
Yeah, and it's serious, isn't it? Because we've got girls as young as 10 taking diet pills. Is it because they want to look like the stars of Love Island? Do let us know what you
Very,
think. We're going to be
very scary
speaking, yeah, very scary. We're going to be speaking to a leading Harley Street surgeon for his take on this. And we're also going to be cooking up a storm with Aldo Zilli as he celebrates 40 years in the industry. It's a packed show. You don't want to miss it. But
I
first,
love it.
let's get the weather for you.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Now, next Monday, ITV2 will launch Love Island All-Stars. As a showcast with glamorous 20-somethings, this has been linked to something known as the Love Island effect, where young people watching to look into the book Tweakments, cosmetic procedures such as Botox, fillers and body makeovers, it's becoming a thing.
Yeah, it really is. And the former Love Islander Liberty Poole hit out just last month saying it was a dangerous celebrity surgery trend, and she encouraged her fans to embrace their natural beauty instead. Well, joining us now to discuss the latest trends is leading Harley Street hair transplant surgery, Dr. Raja, who is a leading surgeon. Very good to see you this morning, Dr. Raja. Now, we do know about the Love Island effect. We talk about it quite often with a new series starting on Monday. Have you seen an increase in young men coming to you looking for a hair transplant?
Good morning, Ellie and Peter. Thank you for having me, firstly. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been on and discussed before. Perhaps too early at the moment to see that effect. Is usually, some sort of lag after the show's been cast and finishes. But certainly we see this effect it has on a particularly younger population of men and women. And in my practice as a hair transplant surgeon, I certainly tend to see that reflect in the way people are more concerned about their appearance.
I mean, they call it the Love Island effect, but it really is a social media effect. I mean, it's really taking over, isn't it? It's almost like the digital version of the person is becoming more popular than the person, if you know what I mean, by image, by what we're creating.
Yeah, certainly. I've seen over the past few years is, gradually it's got worse. People are more and more obsessed about the finer, minute details. And people tend to forget, when it comes to things like surgery, it's never perfect. We can always try our best to create an improvement, but you have to be realistic with expectations. And that same rule applies with cosmetic surgery, with Botox and fillers. And one of the reasons we're increasingly concerned is, the unregulated practices that are taking place in the UK, which now there's legislation, for the sort of aesthetic side of it. But as a hair transplant surgeon, I'm continually working with my colleagues to improve the legislation that we have in place.
I mean, but many would say that legislation came all too late, and there were, especially if we look at the aesthetics industry, there were girls as young as 16, 17 going to backstreet clinics and being injected by anybody with this sort of filler. So there are still great concerns about that, aren't there? I mean, when it comes to young people, and if a young person was to come in to see you for a consultation, what sort of advice would you give them? Would you see it as a positive, that they're perhaps trying to improve themselves and improve their image, or do you have to be quite careful, really, about the advice that you give them?
I think it's very, very difficult sometimes because, you have people who are dead set on getting a hair transplant, perhaps, and they might not be the best candidate. They might not be suitable, particularly with younger people, because the chances of them losing more hair aggressively are much higher. So, we have a very stringent vetting process, but unfortunately, a lot of the other clinics or lower end clinics, or as you referred to, backstreet clinics, they do exist for hair transplant as well. So they'll often go ahead and do these procedures and leave these young people in a very difficult position. One of the barriers for them to access somebody like myself is perhaps the consultation fees, or the surgery might be too expensive. And I'm now working with a brand called Manual to make that more accessible to the general population and make it ethical and fair. So we're always working to try and improve things.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy, I know that hair is something, us guys, when we heard about this sort of thing, everyone got excited thinking if I get to the point, you know, I haven't yet got to the point where I need something, but I've always said if I do get to that point, why wouldn't you do that? Something like that. I think where the problem is where people just want everything done, maybe unnecessarily. You know, if you've lost your hair and it really lacks your confidence in it, you know, I can understand that. But when we're talking about all the other things like fillers and Botox, which of course is up to the individual, but it's when they're going to young people. You know, we were seeing someone as young as 10 getting these treatments and stuff like that. I mean, that's absolutely dangerous.
Oh, I certainly agree with that. I mean, we've all seen people where, you know, we might think perhaps they've had too much work done. And this is something that's all too common. And unfortunately, the younger population, particularly young women, you know, in the late teens are falling victim to this. So, you know, really trying to regulate that legislation, making the higher quality procedures more accessible is something that, you know, we as an industry try and focus on. But there's no hiding from it. We can't get away from this effect. It's not just Love Island. You know, we've seen that classically through the 90s with, you know, celebrities like yourself, Peter. You know, people would look up to you and want to look very much like you, you know. So that is amplified so much more with the effects of social media. And now it's, you know, very, very apparent. And it comes through partners often. You know, people come to me, you know, I was watching this show with my partner and they like this celebrity and I want to look like this person. And to make somebody look like somebody else, you know, is always going to be a game that you're not going to win because it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Raja. Really good to have your thoughts on that topic, because it is a very worrying topic, isn't it? We were talking about it just before we came on air today, actually, because there was a story in the papers this week. I think it was in the Evening Express, I think it might have been on the Daily Express. 1 in 10 girls, young girls, are taking diet pills now. 1 in 10. And some of those girls, as you were saying, are just 10 years old.
So scary.
Isn't it just terrifying?
And that's them taking it. And then there's ones that want to do all the surgery and want to do this at that very young age. And it's really, really worrying. Well, a point that was made that was very good is it's not new. This is not new where people want to look like other people. I remember in the 90s, I had my nose done because I'd been picked on as a kid in Australia so much for my big nose and my curly hair, which is why I straighten it. I know. Anyway, no, the reason I'm telling you this is because I went to the surgeon and I said, can you make me look like Robert Downey Jr.? Because Robert Downey Jr. was, in those days, he was in films like Only You, he was in Back to the Future. This is way before he became known for what he's known now. And I remember seeing a side profile picture and I said, I want my nose just like that. So I can see why people do it. It's just worrying when you're very young. I mean, I was in my late 20s when I did that.
Yeah.
So it is really worrying.
I think it is, and I think it is sad. I mean, that you wanted to look like somebody else. And like Dr. Raja was saying,
fellow, though, isn't he?
Dr. Raja was saying, all these young girls who come in and want to look like somebody else. It is. I just think it's so sad. I guess you're right. It's not new. There's always been this pressure, but I think there is this additional pressure now on the younger generation.
But I think as parents, we've got to take some responsibility, and we've got to just keep telling them positive things. Not always saying you look amazing, you look beautiful. It's not just about looks. It's about, you know, talking about other things, so they're not focused just on
not just
image.
a whole, it's not just image,
absolutely.
no, it's so important. Everything else, isn't it, really? You'll have an opinion on that at home. Do let us know, gbviews@gbnews.com. But stay with us. Coming up, we're going to be cooking up a storm with celebrity chef and your friend, Aldo Zilli. He's celebrating 40 years in the industry, and he's going to share his tips for a tasty veganuary, if any of you are doing that.
You can't mention Gino D'Acampo. OK. That's the first question I'm going to ask him. Anyway,
you're going to stir up trouble, aren't you?
Are you still trying to beat the Christmas belly? I haven't taken my Christmas tree down yet, but we'll talk about that later.
Pete!
We'll have the solution with two fitness
basically
experts.
February.
I know. Well, February the 1st, apparently that's a thing, in the studio who will make you want to hit the gym for the rest of this year.
And the rest of your life,
Christmas
apparently.
Belly. Yeah, I know. Have you?
Very good.
Christmas belly's gone.
Stay tuned.
Is it? I don't know.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, welcome back. The time is 10:36 and you're watching Saturday Morning Live with Peter Andre and me, Ellie Costello. Thank you so much for your company.
I am very excited about this because our next guest is a friend of mine. He's cooked for more celebrities than most of us have had hot dinners. Most celebrities, by the way, my friend, has he cooked for me? Let's talk about that in a minute.
Ooh, it's going to start something now. Italian-born celebrity chef Aldo Zilli is a former food writer for The Sun. He opened his first restaurant in London Soho in the 1980s, and it quickly became a popular hotspot for celebrities, including Queen frontman Freddie Mercury and fellow pop star George Michael, who you love, and supermodels Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell, and the Beatles legend Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah, we're joined now by the legend himself to tell us more about his amazing career and what we can be doing to tuck into Veganuary. Now, Veganuary, this is a big thing. A lot of people are divided by this. Aldo, welcome to the show. Talk
what
to
a
me
pleasure.
about...
Well, can I just say, you two look so great.
Oh, so do you, Aldo. Really good to have you with us, isn't it?
You look so great. Peter, I've never seen you look so great.
So Aldo, let's talk first and foremost about Gino DeCampo. No, I'm just... let's just move into this.
Peter, do you want to fight right now?
No, there's enough problems going on in the world right
exactly.
now.
Yeah.
So, veganism. I mean, you know, there's a big division on this. And before you're going to say why, obviously, a lot of people, when people started promoting vegan food, there was a lot of the processed stuff. So when people talked about vegan cheese or vegan, it was the processed stuff, and so it tasted. I mean,
Well, it's not good for you.
It wasn't great to taste.
It's not good for you, and also it's better to eat fresh food, as I always say to everyone. If you're going to go vegan, cook your own food, buy your own vegetables, and you know, don't have meat replacements that you can buy anywhere, and you don't know what's packed in there. But when it comes to cheeses, I'm lactose intolerant now. Yeah, I only discovered that.
I am too. We're all lactose intolerant.
Hang on a second. Did you find as a kid, you'd complain and your mum would just slap you on the back of the head?
Yeah, well, my wife does that now. So nothing's
but at least she knows what's wrong.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, so basically I found all these cheeses from this great company. They send it to me, and they taste really, really good. So, and I looked you look all the ingredients. What you need to do when you before you eat anything that's vegan, read the ingredients. You know, they're very clear what they put in the food, and if there's ingredients that you're not too sure about, then I wouldn't touch them.
Well, I mean, it is amazing. I remember my first time I went to, I said, right, we're going to try 2 weeks being vegan, me and Emily, and
did you?
Yeah, we tried this. This was a couple of years ago, and on the night we said it, the kids wanted to go to Wagamama's, and I said, oh, okay, I'll start tomorrow. And I went there, and they said, would you like a vegan menu? And I thought, oh, this is interesting.
There you go.
I'll have a look, but I was not interested in doing it. Went through it, ordered it, said I'll try it. I couldn't believe it.
Was it yummy?
Absolutely amazing.
Oh, yes.
But I only lasted 2 weeks.
I mean, I'm not vegan. I'm not going vegan.
I was about to say, so you're not vegan, but...
It's just the lactose problem I've got.
All right, can we try some of these
I've researched
cheeses?
all these cheeses. So there's a truffle cheese there's a blue cheese replacement, and also I brought some honey, truffle honey, some pear. You know, it's what you put with it as well. There's a brie there replacement that is really good. Do you want to try them?
Yeah, we want to try it. So what's it replaced with, Aldo?
There's nut. Oh, sorry.
Flying pear.
There's nuts. There's all sorts of like coconut. They use a lot of that.
So it's nut blends, basically,
yeah,
instead of dairy.
For a non-vegan, you're selling this to us very, very well.
I don't know why I'm selling this to you, to be honest, because there's no money for me.
No.
This company not paying me anything yet.
You know, well, they hopefully will after this. You know, as a dad, I have to tell dad jokes. So
Yeah,
what
go
did
on
you
then.
hear about the plane that...
I know you're not eating before a
Carrying
certain time,
cargo.
but just try that.
Crashed.
May I have a
Full of
cracker,
cheese.
please, Aldo?
You may.
No one cares. I'm not even going to say
No,
it.
come on then.
No,
Come on.
There was
You've
debris
lined us
everywhere.
up debris. Here we go.
Get it. I know it's an old
don't
one.
even
We
go
knew
there,
that was a
Peter.
classic one, wasn't it? Yeah, I've got my eye on this burrata. What's
What
this?
is this what? Look what Aldo gave me, guys. Hold on.
He's trying to say something.
This is what Aldo gave me. Look what he's given Ellie. Look.
It's only because I'm
Ellie?
looking at you and you look
Peter.
like you...
And he's meant to be one of my best friends. Aldo, what is that?
He's trying to fatten me up
No,
here.
you said to me before we started that you don't want to eat before a certain time, so there you go.
Right.
All right, let me try this. This is vegan burrata. Do we know what's in the vegan burrata?
Yes. There's coconut, there's nut, there's... God,
Don't say too much until they pay
All
you.
right, here I go.
remember. I
Don't
can't
say
remember
too much
because they're not paying me yet.
Can I just say, burrata, right?
Yeah.
For those who aren't Italian, and we always knew about mozzarella, and it was
Burro is cheese.
Yeah.
Burro is butter in Italian.
Yeah, right.
So it's a buttery mozzarella, basically.
best.
That's really good.
So, you know, the flavour of it, and it's everywhere now. Burrata has become the name burrata.
Oh, it's so popular, isn't it?
It's so popular. In
Try
the
that one, that
restaurant we
one's good.
serve, we saw so many different things. And
Enough
it's really, really so popular. I mean, people fry it. They do all sorts of things with burrata. Burrata has become the new mozzarella, the new buffalo mozzarella, the new... People don't even look at mozzarella anymore. They just look for burrata.
Yeah, because that's the popular one now, isn't it?
Aldo, sorry, my love. I've known you for years, right?
Yeah.
And you, back in the 80s, I mean, your restaurant was the hub for everybody. George Michael, Freddie Mercury. I mean, what was that like?
Well, I'm the youngest of 9 children, and
Wow.
I came to this country at age 19 after being homeless in Germany. So I came here and I started working for an Italian, like a mafia boss in Soho. Sicilian, and then he decided to retire. And he said, "Do you want my restaurant? Give me 500 quid a week." And that is it.
Really?
Yes, that is it. He said, "I want to retire. I want you to take over this restaurant because you're so good at it."
Wow.
I took over, and can you believe it? I couldn't even find sun-dried tomatoes in those days. It was so difficult to find ingredients. So I started bringing all the ingredients in. I put wild mushrooms on the menu, porcini. Now it sounds like, really? So, you know, extra virgin olive oils, different olive oils. Burrata wasn't even thought of. So I started bringing all these things in, and celebrities, A-list of celebrities started coming in, and I started pinching myself because, you know, when George Margot came in, I'm like, really? You know, he finished the Wham final concert and then came to me. And I'm like, oh, my God.
I mean, Aldo, you have been in the industry now for 40 years. I mean, just look at this table here. You've got all these incredible awards. I'm reading Restaurateurs, Restaurant of the Year, the Legends of the Industry Award, the Best Chef 2022 Award there. You've got all these books that you have written. I mean, you have done it all. You've served celebrities. And still, the passion is there.
What's next?
What is next?
What is next?
Me and you travelling around Italy.
Well, hang on, we've got to include the Greek islands for that as well. So we've had this thing for years about the Greeks and the Italians. Let me tell you what happened recently. Aldo comes to my house. I said, "Aldo, let me cook you pasta." He said, "You're going to cook me pasta." I said, "Yeah, look, Greeks cook pasta too, right?" We say pasta in Australia. You say pasta. Right. So I make him my pasta. He's looking, judging. He doesn't say anything. I said, "Just eat it." He eats a whole bowl, by the way, telling me that it's not great while he's eating the whole thing. Went for seconds, and he still told me it's not great.
Oh, Aldo, you're being mean.
We put ketchup in it.
No, it's not ketchup.
Oh, wasn't it?
Tomato puree. What do you mean ketchup? You can't put ketchup in it. Tomato
to me,
puree,
it tasted
butter.
like ketchup. Sorry,
You
it's
can
so
put
much sugar.
puree. It's beautiful.
No, Peter, you're a great cook, as we know now you are. But I need you to take you to the country.
Aldo, you are the best. And obviously you've got loads of books out, but let's just talk about this one.
That's the vegetarian one.
It's the vegetarian one, and it is
if you read the front line there.
Okay. Go on. I love this. I didn't know we knew
this is quite impressive, yeah.
Aldo's vegetarian dishes are spectacular for people like me who enjoy a meat-free diet. His cooking has given me years of gastronomic pleasure. Sir Paul McCartney. Come on.
Doesn't get much bigger than that.
Doesn't get much better than that. Aldo, we're going to have to get you back on the show because we've got so much more eating to do with you. That truffle cheese, can I just say, was my favourite. That was amazing.
I'm going to take some home. Is that OK?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thank you,
But
Aldo.
the fromagerie will send you whatever you want. And Peter, don't forget the coffee tequila that I said I brought just for you. Look at that.
I love that. Thank you. You know I love you, bro. I love you so much.
Aldo, so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the programme.
My pleasure. I'll be back.
You'll be back. You certainly will be.
Now, in the past days, former England manager Sven-Goran Eriksson has tragically revealed he has been diagnosed with terminal cancer and has around a year at most to live.
Yeah, it's really shocking news. The 75-year-old told a Swedish radio station P1 the shock news after previously being in a good state of health. Well, joining us now to discuss this is former England and Man City star Danny Mills, who played under Sven. Very good to see you this morning, Danny. I do wish it was in much better circumstances. I mean, this must have been such shocking news for you.
Yeah, I think it's very, very sad. You know, what we've heard about, you know, the fact that he was out for a gentle jog or a little run, appears to have had, you know, several minor strokes. And off the back of that, obviously, his children have taken him to hospital, and he's received some absolutely devastating news that clearly was a complete shock, not just to him, to his family, but to the whole football world as well.
What are your memories of Sven-Goran Eriksson? Because we all know him. I mean, he's synonymous with English football now. But what was he like as a person, as a man?
He was very, very different. If you go back to, you know, the era that he managed in, and the era that was at the time, it was all about screaming, shouting, throwing teacups, all those types of things. I don't remember Sven ever raising his voice, let alone shouting. He was very much in the Arsene Wenger mould of management, spoke very, very softly. His football knowledge was absolutely incredible, worked with some of the top clubs in the world, a lot of the top players as well. Spoke, I would say, fluently 5 languages, probably spoke 7 or 8 in bit part. You know, he was incredible. When I was at Manchester City, he spoke to all the different players in their own language fluently, which was incredible. But he was a very sort of soft, gentle man. You know, he cared. And I think you still see that now. I've listened to some of the interviews that he's done, you know, and he's very sort of philosophical about, you know, his diagnosis, about what's next. The fact that he said, look, it is what it is. You know, I have to accept it. I have to deal with it. And I have to live every day to the best that I possibly can. Hopefully, you know, it's not a year. You know, I've seen other people, you know, go on that have had terminal diagnosis to go on and live longer than that. Sadly, we know that can also go the other way around in the fact that it can happen sooner. But I think he's been incredibly brave, you know, coming out about it, speaking about it, getting on and living his life.
I can imagine how this has affected his family. How has it affected you personally, being someone that knew him?
Well, yes, Sven gave my England debut. You know, without him, or who knows, you know, what would have happened? Would I have played for England? Would I have played in the World Cup? You know, all those great memories that you had. You know, Sven was a character. You know, he will be polarised in some instances because of, you know, what happened during his football time. But also, let's be honest, he was a little bit of a character off the field as well. You know, he wasn't shy of... Well, he wasn't shy. He was in the media, possibly not for always the right reasons or not for footballing reasons. But that's how he was. You know, although he was very, very quiet, you know, was a huge personality, incredible charm that he had, you know, an aura and a power. Yeah, it's just incredibly sad because, like I said, you know, for me, working with him at England, you know, gave me my opportunity, gave my chance, played on the biggest stage that there ever is to play at, had faith in me. So to see him in this, you know, current situation, you know, yeah, of course, is very, very sad.
It is very, very sad, and 75 is no age now, is it really? Danny Mills, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for speaking so fondly of Sven-Goran Eriksson. As he has said, Sven himself has publicly done interviews, just the most incredible attitude, and let's hope he does have longer than a year. But it is just desperately sad news, isn't it? So thank you to Danny Mills for his time there.
Now, it can be a struggle to jump back into exercise after an enjoyable festive period, but a gradual return can help you stick to your fitness goals.
Yes, a UK report this week has found that 3/4 of gym goers report boosts in their mental health. Well, joining us now to share their hot tips for staying fit throughout the year are top personal trainers and fitness experts, Tamir Grant and Nadiva Lowe. Very good to see you this morning, Tamir and Nadiva. So, I mean, when it comes to getting back in the gym, I do feel like it's a lot more of a mental struggle than it is a physical one. Is that something that you hear quite often?
Yeah, 100%. You just need to start from somewhere. So, I mean, I've said before to some of my clients that find a way that you can get into the gym where it's the night before you set out your gym wear and you make sure that you have everything laid out. So just find easy steps to get you into that point. Don't think, OK, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym. Find a way to get there beforehand. It just helps you get into it.
You know, back in the early days when we were a lot younger, fitness was all about looking a certain way. And I really do believe that as time's gone on, it's more about how you feel. And then, of course, the byproduct is that you look good from it, but it's how you feel. And there's so much focus in the industry about eating. You've got to watch what you eat this, you've got to watch what you eat that. So much focus on that, when actually, should we not be encouraging people to just get active and get fit, and then they make better choices? I mean, you might disagree, but I mean, at least to start them on that journey.
I think it's a bit of both, because nowadays I think, well, back in your day with your abs, you know, it wasn't so much about... I know. I had to bring it up at some point. I don't think you maybe necessarily focus so much on what you were eating. I mean, you knew what to eat and what not to eat, but now it's all about 80% diet, 20% exercise. So, and there's also that famous phrase, you can't out-train a bad diet as well. So it's a bit of both, but like you said, sometimes even if you're overweight or unfit in general, just doing exercise will actually extend your life expectancy by a significant amount, more so than actually eating healthily. So even you can actually eat quite unhealthily and still exercise. But exercise doesn't have to be that dripping sweat, dying, feeling like you're about to pass out. It can be as simple as a brisk 30-minute walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just getting the heart rate up.
What is your best advice? Because we focus so much on exercise and fitness. I mean, January, and you know the gyms are packed in January. They're really trying to give it a go, but very rarely do people make it a lifestyle. How do you make that switch?
So there's different things that you can do. For example, if you're someone that gets the tube to work, try and get off a stop before and take that extra walk into work. Instead of taking a lift, take the stairs. It doesn't have to be go and kill yourself in an hour in the gym. There's other ways that you can incorporate a healthy lifestyle within your lifestyle that you do anyway.
No, that's really good advice.
Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting. I guess I still go back to this thing of, like, if we can really get people being active, like you said, even by these little steps that they take, they end up generally making better decisions all round. And I just worry when everyone just focuses, you mustn't eat this, you mustn't eat that, and it's daunting for people because food's such a pleasure. Let's make activity a great pleasure for people, and then they can make better choices. That's just my opinion. I might not be.
So the way I would approach it, because a lot of times people don't like going to the gym. I mean, the repetitions.
Yeah.
The atmosphere as well, especially, I think, for men. I mean, what you were speaking about before about looking a certain way with Love Island and all the rest of it. I think sometimes it's not so important to go to the gym as it is to maybe...
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. This weekend sees a change in wind direction to more of a northerly flow, and with that we will start to see Arctic air streaming down across the UK. Ahead of that, we've got this cold front slowly sinking southwards. This is a fairly weak feature, so you can see there's hardly any rain on it, some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle. To the south of it, though, it will be a fairly cloudy Saturday, quite gloomy in places. But to the north of that, though, some brighter spells poking their way through, along with some showers pushing to the far north of Scotland. Brisk winds across parts of the Northern Isles as well. Temperatures generally around where we'd actually expect them to be for the middle of January, between 7 and 8 degrees Celsius, but quite cold in the south, though, underneath all of that cloud. As we head overnight, that cold front will continue to push its way southward, so again, some very light outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A few clearer spells in the mixture as well, and where you do see some of those clearer skies, we could see some patchy frost overnight, as well as some mist and fog patches forming. Temperatures where you're underneath the cloud, just holding up just above freezing, around 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. Again, another rather cloudy day across southern areas on Sunday. Some brighter skies developing for Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of southern Scotland. Those showers, though, in the north are now going to start falling as snow across areas of northern Scotland, bringing an ice risk as well, combined with very strong winds, severe gales across Shetland, potential for blizzards and drifting snow. Temperatures falling down as that cold air pushes in from the north, stretching to all areas as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great weekend so far. I'm Peter Andre, alongside Ellie Costello, and this is the awesome Saturday Morning Live.
Yeah, really good to have your company this morning to kickstart your weekend with an action-packed show. Now, we've all been gripped, haven't we, by the ITV drama Alan Bates versus the Post Office. But of course, questions remain. How will all of these postmasters be cleared, and what's next?
24-year-old Louie Alexander will be with us to share his incredible achievements, having completed the 7 Continents Challenge. Wow.
Yeah, 7 marathons on 7 different continents. He's absolutely incredible. It's a great story. And of course, we'll be getting all the latest gossip in our wonderful Showbiz section with Stephanie Tecci.
80s soul superstar Lee John of Imagination will be leaving us under no illusions, like that, as he bears all with us later on in the show ahead of this citywide tour later this year. That's going to be very exciting.
And this show is nothing without you. Really want to know your thoughts, your opinions on any of the stories that we're talking about today. So do email us, gbviews@gbnews.com. We'll try and read as many as we can throughout the show.
Yep, but before we do anything else, Aaron Armstrong has all your news headlines.
Very good morning to you. It's a minute past 11 here in the GB newsroom. The United States has carried out a fresh attack against Houthi rebels in Yemen. It comes a day after Britain and the US launched dozens of strikes on the Iran-backed group's positions. The Houthis have vowed to continue targeting ships in the Red Sea to show their support for Palestinians in Gaza. Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has warned Iran, though, to ensure its proxy cease and desist, because, in his words, the world is running out of patience. Military analyst Sean Bell says America's strike was strategic, focusing on a specific site.
The US unilaterally did the strike last night. It's either that following yesterday, the Houthis launched another missile almost as an act of petulance, and it looks either in response to that the US has struck this radar site, or after the strikes on Thursday night, battle damage assessment, they will have looked and said, one of the radar sites is still survived the attack, and therefore they decided to use USS Carney to use another Tomahawk missile to actually take it out. It does seem to be a very surgical, measured response, and it is a unilateral response last night.
Tax experts say the Post Office could be facing insolvency for failing to pay up to £100 million in tax. They say the company claimed £934 million of tax relief on compensation paid to branch managers caught up in the Horizon scandal. Tax Policy Associates and non-profit organisations described the practice as outrageous and potentially unlawful. The Post Office says its financial information is appropriate and accurate. Hundreds of staff were convicted after faulty software made it appear money was missing from their branches. Lawyer Nigel Hudgell represented some of the sub-postmasters.
We've got an IT system that clearly was flawed, but people made decisions on the back of that. So those people need to be held to account. I think we've seen some people come out this week, some high-profile individuals express regret, in some instances apologise, gestures around handing back honours. I think the feeling within the people that I speak to is some of this is rather late in the day. It's forced.
The first Channel migrants of the year have arrived in Dover. Border Force intercepted a vessel carrying around 50 people this morning. It's the first small boat crossing since the 16th of December, the longest period without any migrant arrivals for almost 4 years. It's thought bad weather deterred more people from making the dangerous journey. A huge police presence is expected, with pro-Palestine protesters set to march through central London later. They're warning demonstrators they'll face arrest if they intentionally push the limit on placards and slogans. Thousands of people are expected to gather around lunchtime as part of a global day of action for Palestinians. The Metropolitan Police says forces from outside the capital will also be on duty. And parts of the UK can expect more snow and sub-zero temperatures this weekend. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings for much of the north of Scotland from midnight until Monday evening, when temperatures could drop as low as -5 degrees. It could cause disruption to travel, both on the roads and the railways. Snow and ice also set to hit Northern Ireland on Monday. Well, this is GB News. We're live on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. Now it is back to Peter and Ellie.
Thanks, Aaron. The US has carried out a new attack on a Houthi site in Yemen. This comes a day after wider attacks led by the US and the UK on Thursday evening.
Yes, the Houthis have vowed that the US and the UK strikes this week will not go without punishment or retaliation. Well, joining us now to discuss what this means for us in Britain and what the impact of this will be on international relations is GB News reporter Charlie Peters. Really good to see you this morning, Charlie. We're getting so many emails in this morning saying, why are the British Armed Forces getting involved in the Red Sea?
Well, since mid-December, Britain has been a key partner of Operation Prosperity Guardian. This is a US-led maritime coalition to protect shipping through the Red Sea into the Suez Canal and then into the Eastern Mediterranean. It is a key route for trade, for goods, and also for oil tankers. And it's down by 52% from mid-November. And that's because these Houthi rebels have enacted an extremely successful naval blockade of the Red Sea by firing a mixture of so-called suicide drones, very cheap attack drones, and also slightly more high-tech ballistic missiles and cruise ship missiles onto both commercial shipping but also military assets. And so Britain has been part of that international coalition to try and resist those attacks, protect shipping, and also, in doing so, prevent a severe inflationary rise to our economies, both in Europe but of course also in the US. Because if prices spike in Europe, then more of those ships are going to want to come here instead.
This is very, very worrying. And I mean, it looks like it's going to escalate. It doesn't look like it's going to calm down. Where do you think it can go from here?
Well, quite frankly, the Houthis are having the time of their lives. They are a relatively small group in the Iranian sphere of influence in West Asia, but they are taking on the most powerful militaries in the world. And on a strategic level, they're winning. They are able to put so much pressure on the West to prevent that shipping going through the Red Sea. They're doing so, they say, in order to support Hamas in Gaza and oppose the Israeli invasion there. And they are putting that significant pressure on because they've proven that with limited assets, with some drones, they can prevent ships from going through that crucial shipping platform. Over a dozen shipping companies, some of the biggest in the world, are still refusing to go through. And quite frankly, these Houthis, they prove that they win by taking on these significant strikes we saw on Thursday and still firing. And we saw a missile launched yesterday, some 80 nautical miles off the coast of Aden, onto a Panama-flagged ship carrying Russian oil. They're still fighting. They will continue to fight. This is the gravest challenge that Western military planners have faced in the Middle East for a significantly long time.
Charlie Peters, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on that developing situation in the Red Sea. Thank you very much indeed. There wasn't a parliamentary vote before that military action in the Red Seas. We'd like to know your opinion on that. Should there have been? Do let us know what you think. gbnews@gbnews.com. Loads of you getting in touch this morning. Thank you so much for your company. Amanda says she's usually at work on a Saturday, but today she's watching us. She says it's a lovely breath of fresh air and a good combination. Loving the show. Thank you so much, Amanda. And loads of you getting in touch, of course, on the post office scandal. I think there is so much public anger, really, over this situation. This is from somebody in Devon who says, I don't think the British public will be satisfied until all those responsible are doing some serious jail time.
Yeah, Gareth says, postmasters had their lives destroyed not because of a mistake, but because they were tried and convicted when bosses knew the truth that the software was not secure. And I think this is where a lot of people are getting very angry.
Yes, yes.
And also,
Bill says they are playing for time, hoping that their problems will recede.
And Roger in Chichester says, just heard your correspondent stating the post office made mistakes. I would rather say it was a corrupt organisation.
Yeah, there's a lot of anger out there towards the post office at the moment. Let's bring in our panel today, shall we? This is Nikki Hodgson, author and broadcaster, and Alex Armstrong, political commentator. Very good to see you both this morning. Let's start on the post office scandal, shall we? Because there is so much public anger about this now, isn't there, Nikki? It really seems to have caught on to the public's consciousness. It's been going on for the best part of 3 decades, but it's now off the back of this ITV drama where people have really woken up to it.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of beggars belief that something this disturbing could happen, and so many people actually know the truth of what had gone on behind the scenes and nobody be held accountable for it. I mean, I think what is disturbing as well is, you know, this was the deal with Horizon, owned by Fujitsu, was done in the 90s. It's when Tony Blair was in power, and it was also to do with bolstering British-Japanese relations. Now, I mean, this is possibly the worst PR Japan have had for ages, you know, considering our experience of it. But I kind of get the feeling that actually that was put before, you know, the importance of building that relationship has been put before people's livelihoods, people's reputations. And it's fantastic that this drama has brought it to the fore. I mean, that is the power of drama, maybe in the way that sometimes news doesn't have the impact. And I also just want to shout out to my friend Catherine Kelly, who's acting in the show. I actually acted at school with her, but she's the famous one now. It's just lovely to see her do so well, and she's really involved in kind of, you know, supporting people getting justice as well.
Yeah, it's just a remarkable story. I think people wouldn't believe that this had been allowed to happen for quite so many years. Interesting you mentioned Fujitsu, because Fujitsu have managed to keep very quiet amongst all of this, Alex.
Yeah, they are the real story here, aren't they? If we really take it down to who's responsible, it is Fujitsu who, if you'd watched the drama, clearly had covered up a lot of things when it comes to this scan, including saying they had offline testing sites when they may have had access actually to postmasters' computers. What continuously surprises me is how much more information we're learning about this almost every day. Obviously, there was a big report yesterday that Tony Blair, all the way back in 1998, may have had information that the Horizon system wasn't fit for purpose. Where is this going to end? I mean, it's like a whole political class that's spanning 2 decades that may have known about this but refused to do something on it.
Well, Charlie Peters, our GB News reporter, we're very lucky to have on the sofa with us. And you've actually been covering this story this week, haven't you, Charlie?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching the inquiry yesterday for some 7 hours. They warned at the beginning that it was going to be a very dry day of interaction with the Post Office lawyer, Chris Jackson. But he actually started with an apology, and he apologised due to the suboptimal, in his words, supply of documents to the inquiry. And I think people are so frustrated. This has been going on since 2021, the public inquiry, and it has taken so long to get through it. And there are allegations being made by the inquiry's lawyers that they're failing to put forward the adequate documentation to let justice come forward. Some 2.8% of over 400,000 documents have been supplied. In one case, one document was supplied, duplicated 50 times. And there are several examples that were given yesterday, including one case where a load of documents that were required for Monday was submitted late on Friday night, so all the lawyers had to suddenly pore over them desperately to be in time for the inquiry. And, well, it's good to see, I think, many were saying, an apology for that, at least at this stage.
If you think about people that this has affected over many, many years, some people lost their lives, some people are completely distraught by this. And a drama comes out, and what it does is it sheds light, and now it starts to gain momentum. And yes, there's the sense that they're now being heard, which is amazing. But the damage that's been done, I mean, what compensation, what money could repay or give you back those years of betrayal, those years of being criticised by people, being stared at, losing job, losing houses, losing money? I mean, what amount would make people happy?
Well, it makes you think of the people who go to prison wrongly convicted of murder. You know, those kind of scenes where they're behind bars for 30 years and they're released. And there's almost kind of an awe-inspiring humility from those people that they don't feel a sense of anger and revenge. They've just had to accept that suffering. But it's an appalling situation, and I think that comparison is apt, but miserable nonetheless.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. Look, we're going to change tack slightly, because this is a story in the Daily Mail this morning which has caught my eye, and Nikki, I know it has you as well. It's about tipping and America's tipping culture, and apparently it's made its way over here. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something I've been noticing, actually, kind of creep in the past couple of years, you know, with all the boring stuff like getting your nails done and tanning. You'll probably know about that as well, Ellie.
Yeah, I do.
All of a sudden, you're obliged to tip. And the thing is, British people just don't know what the rules are at all. I mean, actually, the way I was brought up is that it was actually quite embarrassing to tip somebody because you were implying that they were kind of poor or they weren't getting paid properly. And Alex discovered this morning that tipping actually comes from slavery. Basically, when people weren't paid proper wages, they were tipped instead. So if something's got that kind of precedent, don't we just want to get rid of it? It just seems so strange.
Oh, do you know what? It's interesting you say that, because it is awkward sometimes. So in my head, I tip when I'm in a restaurant or I'm receiving a beauty treatment, which is actually quite a lot. I was having my hair done recently, and I gave her £10, which was 10% of my hair colour, and she went, "Oh, you've given me too much," and tried to give it back to me. And I was like, "No, that's your tip." And I had to kind of explain.
Oh, it's so awkward, isn't it? I know.
And I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have given her. That's just 10%. I just thought that's what people did." So I feel like it's very awkward.
Yeah, very.
I think, from what I understand, TIPS stands for to ensure prompt service, and I think it was, which you think it would be ensure, but it's insure. And apparently it was like a contribution box outside places where you would put money in, and that was your insurance policy that you would get good service. Whereas now you have the treatment and then someone's standing there waiting. It is a very awkward thing.
It's so awkward.
I mean, if you've ever been to America, you have to consider that as part of your trip, how much money you're going to spend on tips, and it's a lot. Do you know what really grinds my gears, and I'm sure everyone watching will agree, is when you get a bill and there's that charge at the bottom which you haven't agreed to, but unless you tell them, I want that taken off my bill, which is extremely awkward, it's on there anyway.
Oh, that
I can't
is
stand
really
that.
awkward. When would you tip then?
So I think restaurants is a good place to tip if you've had good service, right? Or again, if you get a haircut, a good haircut from a barber, give them a nice tip. But it's got to be for a good service. I wouldn't want to tip for a bad haircut, and I've had a few of those in my time.
And you don't want it to be mandatory as well.
Absolutely, it should never be mandatory, because that's the employer's job, right? Pay them properly.
Yeah,
Hope
Charlie?
you paid him a good tip for the hair you got now.
Well, just take it all off,
Charlie, what about you?
Well, in New York restaurants, they put waiters they don't like in the European section because they know they're not going to tip. So this is a cultural issue we've got to overcome. I think tipping's fine. I think it's a useful thing. I think it's a great way of expressing a.
But then what's enough and what's too much and what's not enough? And
we need some social etiquette. We need some rules publishing, and then we can follow them.
And do you know what we really need to crack down on is management dipping into tips of waiters as well. And this is a huge legal problem in the States. They have their entire law firms that base themselves entirely around dealing with the issues of tips being distributed unequally between front of house, back of house, and more troublingly, people dipping their hand in that pot.
No, it's not good, is it? Well, do stay with us, because talking of the post office scandal, we've actually got a GB News exclusive now. This is ex-deputy postmistress Yvonne Tracy. She has told GB News that she's going to stand against the Lib Dem leader Sured Davey at the next general election. Now, that's as he faces criticism over his role in the post office scandal.
Let's get more on this and join our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, you've been speaking to Yvonne this morning.
Hello, yes, I've been speaking to Yvonne this morning. There is absolute fury among postmasters about the behaviour of Ed Davey, who was the Minister for Postal Affairs between 2010 and 2012. He didn't agree to meet Alan Bates, the star of that ITV drama, the champion of the postmasters. He said that there would be no purpose in a meeting, and postmasters feel essentially that he just didn't dig hard enough to find out what was going on. Yvonne Tracy is now standing against Ed Davey as an independent in his constituency of Kingston and Surbiton, and this is what she had to say when I spoke to her.
I just saw, like many other people, the programme about Mr Bates versus the Post Office, and I was really sad, first of all, but then really angry. And I thought, these poor people, what can we do to help them get justice? Because they still haven't got justice. And my own MP is Ed Davey in the constituent I live in, and I just think I would have loved it if we could have got a sub-postmaster who'd been affected by this to stand against Ed Davey, but I can understand that probably their confidence is not, and they probably are fed up to death with the government, etc. So I thought, it's going to be me. I'm reluctantly doing it, but I feel I have to do something, and this is all I can do.
So you get a sense there of the real anger at Ed Davey among current and former postmasters and postmistresses. Yvonne is standing in this seat where Ed Davey has a majority of just over 10,000. We spoke about whether it was realistic for her to actually win the seat or whether she just wanted to put a dent in Davey's majority. Her and her campaign team think that it is realistic. That 10,000 majority isn't sort of set in stone. Ed Davey lost the seat in 2015 only to win it back in 2017, and her feeling is that public outrage has reached such a pitch now on this issue that there's a real thirst to have someone in Parliament with experience in a post office who is willing to speak up for postmasters and postmistresses, and that's why she's running, as she says, reluctantly, this campaign.
Okay, Olivia Utley there for us in New Malden. Thank you so much for bringing us that exclusive on the post office scandal, which just rolls on and on. Nikki, what did you make of that? What did you make of Yvonne, this ex-postmistress who is now going to stand in Sir Ed Davey's seat? I mean, you can feel the palpable anger, can't you, from her?
Absolutely, and just like the bravery, actually, for doing that. Because if you're not into politics in the sense of you've never been involved in it and you don't really understand it, maybe, I'm not saying that Yvonne doesn't, but, you know, you're not part of the system, to stand up against the system means a lot. Especially when actually she's fighting for a lot of other people as well. You feel that she's doing it for others rather than it's not self-serving, you know? It really is to get justice.
And that experience of being a sub-postmistress, well, that would be very useful right now, would it not?
And these are exactly the sort of people I want to see holding public office. Yeah. Real people who know their local communities and can speak up for them. The fact of the matter is Ed Davey should be doing that, and he's not, and that's why she's standing. She's being compelled to stand. I'm really pleased. This is a great story, and I actually think she's got a very good shot at this.
I think one of the things that was mentioned is about how it started off, we all felt sad for what we were hearing, that very quickly turned to anger, because you then start to see the depth of how huge this problem has been for years.
And how it's really incensing the public more than anything else that's going on in the world. Anything else that's going on in Britain, this is the thing people want to talk about, and they want to see justice. And if that means more ordinary people, more people from working in backgrounds in public service, like the post office, get involved in politics, I'm hoping something good can finally come of it. And that's a great story, in my opinion.
And just very briefly, Charlie, do you think this pressure will remain on Sir Ed Davey? Because questions have been coming for him all week.
Well, he's in real trouble. Yeah. There's no two ways about it. And I think there are so many elements to this story that are going to continue to haunt him as this continues. And also, I mean, you can't expect a minister to be completely on top of their portfolio and every single element of the issue when they're in charge. But this story is so large, it's never going to go away so long as he's the leader of the Lib Dems.
And I bet he wishes he just met Alan Bates.
Precisely.
Don't you think? Charlie Peters, Nikki Hodgson and Alex Armstrong, really good to see you today. Thank you very much. Now, do stay with us, because coming up, we're going to be hearing the incredible achievements of 24-year-old Louie Armstrong, who's completed the 7 Continents Challenge.
And Stephanie Tecci will be here to share the latest showbiz gossip with us.
Yeah, do stay with us.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Louie Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, how does it feel to take on the 7 continents at the age of 24? Well, that's just what our next guest has done, and raised £40,000 in the process for charity.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, isn't it? This is British explorer and adventurer Louie Alexander, who has conquered his final marathon in Antarctica to complete his history-making Running the 7 Continents challenge. That means 7 marathons in the most remote corners of the world, and it's all for the most incredible cause. It's Alzheimer's research in honour of his grandfather, who very sadly lost his battle to dementia. And we have Louie in the studio with us now. Louie, so pleased to have you in the studio with us. What an incredible challenge. Talk us through it. What is the 7 Continents challenge?
Well, thank you first of all for having me. This is a real pleasure. So I've just got back from Antarctica about 3 weeks ago. So over the last 14 months, I've been on a project to run 7 marathons in the most remote corners in the world. And as you said, it's a global challenge for this global cause. And it's all been for dementia in honour of my grandfather.
Wow, I mean, what a massive challenge. So you have run in Antarctica. We can see, if you're listening on the radio, we can see Louie there in Antarctica with your goggles on and what would you call that, a balaclava or a snood?
It was. One of the big challenges with Antarctica is your exposed skin. So 20 minutes of exposed skin could lead to frostbite and serious issues.
I guess coming back here feels like summer.
It's OK. I mean, I'm quite acclimatised, yeah, which is great. But
unbelievable. And you went to the outback as well. I mean, these are extreme conditions.
For sure. I mean, the contrast has been huge with this project. There's been a contrast in the weather, the communities, the wildlife. We look at the outback. You know, I ran through the eucalyptus trees at sunrise, following the footsteps of these kangaroos.
That's amazing.
In the desert, temperatures were close to 40 degrees. You know, incredibly hot and humid. And then I've had a few cold ones: the Arctic, Alaska, Antarctica last month. I've been very, very lucky and privileged just to witness some of the most incredible places on Earth.
Wow, I bet the scenery has been absolutely majestic on this challenge. How do you even begin to train for something like this with all those different kinds of elements?
It's a great question. Well, these aren't normal marathons, so my training can't be normal either. So I've been often training in cold chambers, hot chambers. It's all about being as injury resistant as possible, because if we look at the Amazon rainforest as an example, it took 3 flights, a 100-kilometre boat journey, 2 kayaks just to get to the start line. So by the time you get there, you're fatigued, you're jet-lagged. You need to be prepared to be injury-resistant. So that's been the ultimate goal.
Obviously, you've done this for an incredible, incredible cause. But at what moment do you think, I'm going to do something that no one could think is possible because I have to raise this awareness? Well, you could have done a GoFundMe page, you could do
a bake sale,
you could do anything. And what made you think, no, I'm going to really make my mark here?
Well, my life changed when I was 19 years old. I had my grandfather, for reference, he was Captain Rick Taylor. He served in the British Army for 38 years. He served all around the world, but it was his 17-year-long battle against dementia which sadly ended his life. And when I was 19, I had one of the greatest privileges in the world, where my nan asked me to deliver the eulogy at his funeral. And the truth is, 19 years old, stood in front of all his family and friends. I didn't know what to say. What do you say when a man has given his life to his country, to his family, and he sadly, you know, his life's been lost through one of the most devastating illnesses in the world. So I stood up there and I just made a promise, which was to support this fight against dementia until the day we find a cure.
You're a good person, that is for sure.
Thank you.
That is so moving, and that must have really stayed with you, that promise, throughout
promise
this
has
challenge.
defined my life, and you know, it's been 4 or 5 years now. I'm 24 and I've climbed a few mountains, I've swam some oceans, I've just finished this running project, and earlier this week, which is really exciting to talk to you, because earlier this week on Monday I was at number 10 delivering my open letter.
Yes, tell us about that, because we've got a copy here. So tell us about this. This is an open letter that you delivered yourself to Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister.
And this isn't the one. I delivered the one on Monday. These are the 2 spares, but actually these were both for you. So those have both been to Antarctica. They've got the passport stamp, as you've just shown there. And as my challenges grow, so must my purpose. And last year I published an open letter to the Prime Minister addressing dementia diagnostics in the UK, because it's so devastating. Currently, 1 in 3 people in England with dementia are never formally diagnosed, which, as you know, is causing so many issues. People aren't getting the care they need right now, and also means when life-changing treatments do become available, which we're hearing could be 1 to 2 years away, you know, there is hope. It means people won't get access to the treatments they deserve. So diagnostics is just one part of this big, big issue, and that's what I've been fighting for.
It is so important what you are doing now, and such an important cause. Your grandfather would be so very proud of you and this challenge. I mean, it doesn't just affect the person who is suffering with dementia, and we both know, because we've both got family members who are affected by it. It affects the entire family unit, doesn't it? Just watching that person that you love so very much just start to lose their memory.
You're absolutely right. It's devastating. When I think about when I'm in those tough moments, you know, in the Amazon, I got hit with a rainstorm, I got chased by wild dogs in the outback as well as in the desert. You know, that's what you think about. You think about the people, the family, the carers, the research. You think about everyone who's fighting this fight. You know, this is a team effort, and we're all in this together.
Now, obviously, I would say you don't need to do anything else in your life now for this, because you've not only written to the Prime Minister, it's a wonderful letter, by the way, and where you say it's in your power to offer hope to individuals diagnosed with dementia rather than a death sentence, in bold, because that's the key point that you want to bring to him. Where would you go from here? If you were like, OK, I've done that challenge, what would be next?
Well, the truth is, this is just the beginning, and,
Oh, man.
and delivering that letter on Monday, that was the closure for this project. And when I knocked on the door 3 times, that was the end of the project. But the truth is, this is not the end of my fight, and I plan to go bigger, greater adventures, and deliver a greater impact, because this promise has defined my life, and I'll support it until the day we find it.
What do you think could be next for you, Louie? Have you got to sit and think about it? Have you got to sit and plan?
I think plans are already in motion. I've got a few ideas to pioneer some big swims. So. Yeah, things are exciting, and I think this is the end of my running chapter for now. I've done last year or 2 years ago, I did 17 marathons in 17 days back to back. For the 17 years my granddad lived with dementia, I've done the 7 continents, a few ultras, but I think it's time now to focus a little bit maybe on swimming.
Well, Louie, you are
yeah,
absolutely incredible, isn't he, just? And your grandfather would be so very proud of you and doing it for such an incredible cause.
You've got a good heart, mate. Honestly,
really
that's beautiful what you're doing.
Thank you very much for coming in. That's what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Do stay with us. Lots more to come on the show today, and you'll be under no illusions later on as Lee John of Imagination will be joining us. You like that?
I love that.
Yeah, but first let's get the news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
It's just an illusion.
Hi, it's 11:32. I'm Aaron Armstrong. The United States has carried out a fresh attack against Houthi rebels in Yemen. It comes a day after Britain and the United States launched dozens of strikes on the Iran-backed group's positions. The Houthis have vowed, though, to continue targeting ships in the Red Sea to show their support for Palestinians in Gaza. The Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has warned Iran to ensure its proxies cease and desist because, in his words, the world is running out of patience. Tax experts say the Post Office could be facing insolvency for failing to pay up to £100 million in tax. They say the company claimed £934 million of tax relief on compensation paid to branch managers who were caught up in the Horizon scandal. Tax Policy Associates, that's a non-profit organisation, has described the practice as outrageous and potentially unlawful. The Post Office says its financial information is appropriate and accurate. The first Channel migrants of the year have arrived in Dover. Border Force intercepted a vessel carrying around 50 people this morning. It's the first small boat crossing since the 16th of December, the longest period without any migrant arrivals for almost 4 years. It's thought bad weather has deterred more people from making the dangerous journey. And a big police presence is expected in London later, with pro-Palestine protesters set to march through the capital. They're warning demonstrators they'll face arrest if they intentionally push the limit on placards and slogans. Thousands are expected to gather around lunchtime. It's part of a global day of action for Palestinians. The Met Police says forces from outside the capital will also be on duty. I'll be back with more at the top of the next hour, or you can get more right now on our website, gbnews.com.
Thanks, Aaron. It's 11:34. Thank you so much for your company this morning. Loads of you emailing in. We were talking about the gym earlier, and we often talk about the gym in January, don't we? But we're talking to 2 experts about how we make it a lifestyle. Amy says the problem with most gym users is they are so locked into their phones that they don't communicate with anyone. They have no fun whilst they're at the gym, and therefore that's why they don't stick to it. Never set a weight loss or body transformation goal just for the sake of it.
And Ian says that when it comes to fitness and gyms, we tend to concentrate on the effects on girls, but I think there's a bigger issue with boys as well when it comes to abusing steroids to get the body that they want, and it needs to be explored too. That is a very, very good point.
Very good point. And, you know, we were talking about diet pills earlier, and there's a new study out this week. I think was it 1 in 10 young girls are on diet pills? But there are young boys as well taking diet pills.
And some girls as young as 10.
Some girls
this
as
is
young as
really
10.
scary stuff.
Really scary stuff. And, you know, it's thought that it comes from Love Island and the impact of those kind of shows on young minds. But is it also to do with the parents? You know, should parents be feeding positivity into their young children to say, look, it's not just about what you see on the inside, it matters in here as well?
Absolutely. When you've got your kids around you, it's important not to always say, you look amazing or you look beautiful. And I learnt this as a parent, you get used to actually saying different things like, oh, you're so clever.
Yeah.
I love the way you did that.
Or you're kind.
And it's those things that they stop focusing, that the main thing that they're looking at is is what they look like.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important.
That's sad.
And a few on the post office scandal as well. It's so much public anger about this story. Irene says it seems that Fujitsu is the main criminal in this story. They are the tech company that, of course, rolled out the Horizon software, which is at the heart of all of this. Irene says they are the ones that never returned thousands of people's money.
And Steve says it is worth highlighting that Adam Crozier, who is now the CEO of ITV, was the CEO of the Post Office from 2003 to 2010. Is that why his name has not showed up in any of this?
Yeah. Very good question. Do keep those views coming in on any of the stories that we are talking about today. gbnews@gbnews.com. We're delighted now to have showbiz journalist Stephanie Tecci with us in the studio. Hi,
Good morning.
Steph. How are you?
I've loved watching the show, can I say? I loved all the issues you've been talking about.
Thank you.
Important.
Oh, we've enjoyed this morning. And you've got some fabulous stories lined up for us today. And it's the comeback of the Gladiators.
The Gladiators are ready, Ellie. They are ready and back for action in the ultimate test of speed and strength. You know, Gladiators first came on our screens in 1992 and it was on air till about 2000, and during that time millions of us watched it. It was the ultimate Saturday night show where you could just really get into it. And January, everyone's feeling a bit sluggish, but now this is a reboot and there's 16 new Gladiators and they'll be going up against contestants like ourselves who want to prove that they're just athletic. As you can see by these hunky and sassy babes here, they are a mixture of rugby players, Olympians, swimmers, so it's going to be really good. It's going to be hosted by Bradley Walsh and his son Barney. There will be some old school kind of games coming back, like the Eliminator, which was a classic which people loved, but it will be new games and it's just going to be refreshing to see this back on our screens.
Now, this was such a massive show.
Oh my
Do you
gosh.
think it will be anything like it was in its heyday?
I don't think so, but I think what it's got a chance to is it's got a chance to now connect with a new audience, because, you know, fitness is a big thing for all of us now. So I think to see something like this show where it's entertaining and it's got a lot of action, I think people will still connect to it. But I think the Gladiators of yesterday, they became superstars in their own right. So I think a lot of people are going to be comparing whether it can live up to the same kind of hype that the last one had.
Did you ever see the documentary on the Gladiators?
Yes, I
that
did.
Was really hard-hitting.
Yeah, some of them have gone on to have amazing careers and some have, unfortunately, fallen by the wayside. And I think that's always the kind of sad thing about these shows. They do make them stars, and once the cameras start rolling, you never know what happens to them.
Now, I want to talk to you about Amy Winehouse. Now, this is new biopic.
Yeah.
A bit controversial. Tell us why.
It is. Well, you know, it's been overlooked by Amy's estate, which is including her dad. And so, you know, usually when the families are working with biopics, you know, usually they kind of control the narrative. This week we've had the first look at the trailer that's come out, and it's starring Marissa Abela. There was a bit of drama about it because there are some scenes that have been shot in Amy's actual flat. Which has left a bitter taste in people's mouth. I think, you know, it's kind of too much of art imitating life in that sense, but her dad has kind of given the go-ahead for all these things. And, you know, there's even like a graveside shoot as well where Amy was actually buried. So it really is a bit close to home. And this film's going to be coming out in April. We've seen the trailer. Marissa Abela, seems like she's going to do a really good job in this, because as we know, Amy was a complex character, suffered a lot of addictions, press intrusion. So to bring this to life, you have to be a really skilled actor. But Amy was a prolific talent in this lifetime. So it'll be amazing to see how this biopic comes across.
You know, you've had some people saying, oh, but she doesn't really look like her.
Yeah.
But then you've got to think, if you look at the Elvis biopic, I remember saying, you know, when you grew up loving Elvis, no one's going to look like Elvis.
No.
But actually, by the time you were halfway through the film, you were like, oh my gosh, is that Elvis? Like, and sometimes good acting will do that. You know, she's got the right elements. When you see her on stage, it looks like it's her.
Yeah, no one's ever going to look like Amy. You can only get someone who's going to imitate her. But the thing with these actors, they study everything about this person's life. So when they're on camera, they'll have the mannerisms, they'll have the, you know, same kind of dialect when they're talking. So I guess a lot of critics are going to be watching this biopic to see whether Marissa Abela can deliver. She's 27, the same age which Amy died, so I guess she can get into that kind of youthful spirit that Amy had.
It's really difficult, isn't it, for these superstars that were loved by so many to have a film about them made. I don't know how I feel about it morally. I just think they haven't had any input in it. Obviously, they can't. But it's difficult, isn't it? It really does edges the line.
It is, because then you think, does it become a moneymaker? Because the next one I was going to talk about is Michael Jackson. So this week they've announced that his biopic will be coming onto screens next April, and he's going to be played by his nephew, Jafar Jackson, who is the son of Jermaine Jackson, who's Michael's brother. And again, you think of this, like, Michael died over almost 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And then you do think to yourself, would Michael have wanted a biopic out there? And the family are kind of given the go-ahead for this, but people are saying, is it going to concentrate on the controversial sides of Michael, including those allegations of child sex abuse? This is a man who had an amazing career for over 40 years, but, you know, if the family are controlling the narrative, it's a bit of a hard one.
And it's an interesting thing, because Michael Jackson was the highest-selling artist of all time. So if anyone's going to have a biopic on them in the music industry, that's the one. Now, just moving the subject to his nephew, if you don't mind. Where it's interesting is that it makes sense because it's his nephew, right? So it's someone from the family. He does resemble Michael.
He does.
But what Michael Jackson had were certain isms that are really almost impossible to emulate. And I would be really interested to see how Jafar can do. I mean, he's going to be amazing because he's got the blood.
First insight. But Peter, you've played Michael on stage before.
I did.
So how did you prepare for that? You know,
well, I was a Michael Jackson fan from a kid because at 16.
We're seeing footage.
Well, you know, but you see, the thing is, for me, as a kid at 6 years old in Australia, the first album I ever bought was Off the Wall. At 6 years old, I saved my money.
Moves, Pete. Look at this.
Oh, stop it. I love you.
You've got the voice as well.
I loved, you know, his music was every reason why I wanted to get into the industry, as many artists are.
So how do biopics make you feel then? Obviously, you're a massive, massive fan. When it comes to somebody like Amy and like Michael, who had their own issues and controversial things going on in their lives, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, you have to touch on everything. You have to. I mean, that is what a biopic is. You can't sugarcoat over everything, you know. And when you are the biggest star in the world, there's also going to be, what's the old saying? Where there's a hit, there's a writ. And it was this thing of, like, whenever you've had that level of success, there's going to be controversy. Obviously, some are more extreme than others, of course. But you have to cover it. You can't just...
No.
You can't brush over that.
And it wouldn't do justice to the people who are watching it, because you can't pull the wool over our eyes. Like with Amy, we knew about the drug addictions. With Michael, towards the end of their life, all those allegations did plague his career. So to them bring their stories on screen and not add that, it will just turn a lot of audiences off.
What I'd love to see is them go back to the beginning and talk about how their childhood was to affect them later on in life.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me in, guys.
Always good to see you. Thank you so much.
Coming up, it's no illusion. I love doing this one. We'll be joined by legendary 80s soul singer Lee John. I'm very excited about that. We'll be sharing a few tunes together. Well, we won't. That was just on the auto cue, but I won't be sharing any tunes. Just Lee will.
We'd love to hear you sing, Pete. Yeah, stay with us. We'll be back after this.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels.
we're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. I'm really excited.
We're
going to milk this next word because we've been doing it all along. It's not an illusion.
No, it's not.
Inverted commas. We are joined now by one of the 80s soul superstars. I'm so excited about this.
Yes, his band have sold well over 20 million records and has had hits in over 30 countries, including In and Out of Love, Flashback, Just an Illusion, we like that one, Music and Lights, and the influential albums Body Talk. And now they are about to embark on a major UK city tour starting this May.
Great, great tunes. Welcome to the show, Lee John, lead singer of Imagination.
Woo.
We've been singing your songs all day.
Thank you.
Really happy to see you. Now, we've spoken years ago, but I'd never actually met you.
I was supposed to write with you.
What?
Yeah, we were supposed to write in the 90s when you were on Mushroom, and I had some songs that I had for you.
I would have been successful.
You would have been. You know, you'd be able to sing like me.
Can we do it now? Can we do it?
We can.
There's still time.
There's still time. Music is something that I think that crosses over to everybody, and as long as you've got good melodies, and something that stays in your heart forever, you can still keep it going.
Oh, and you've absolutely still got it. I mean, looking back at the 80s now, we've been talking about you all morning. Everybody says the same thing, which is what a legend and so many good tunes. What are your reflections now, looking back at the 80s and just how big you were?
I had a great time. It was about the work. So I grew up in a family when it was about the work ethic, and my mother said, as long as you're working, be grateful. And so, therefore, I had a situation when I was 15, I was signed to EMI, but we didn't have, it was a duo, and we didn't have any success. So I think that gave me the willpower to say, I really need to learn about what I'm doing. So I played pubs and bingo halls and all over the country. Prior to Imagination, I was a singing waiter, I was acting. I did all sorts of different things, learning the trade, which to me, by the time Imagination broke with Body Talk, the first single, I was ready, because we used to play the top-ranked bingo in Peckham, and, there'd be 2,000 people there. So by the time we did the Dominion Theatre, 7 nights there, I was ready, baby.
And the thing is, right, so you made a really good point there, that it was all about the work. So you're living this incredible life. Everyone's looking up to you, thinking, oh, my gosh, this, legends. But you've got no time to process this. At what point did you turn around and go, do you know what? I've just had a brilliant decade. Obviously you've carried on, but I'm talking specifically of the 80s. At what point did you sit back and go, we did some amazing
We've
stuff?
made it, that kind of thing. I think, when you're home in England, everybody, and I've always had the same friends. Leroy Logan is one of my best mates. They did a biography about his life, and someone portrayed me in the film, Tyrone Huntley.
Wow.
So I would say, to answer your question, when I went to Spain, and we were playing this huge bullfighting arena, and I looked up and I saw all these crowds, and I'm thinking, I'm not even in England, I'm in Spain. And these people are, I thought, Mama, I've made it. It's that kind of moment. But I always had my family who kept me very grounded. I have a funny story. When we did Top of the Pops, I think it was Music and Lights, and I'd come home and my sister was in my house and I was really tired. I'd put, how it is, you're there all day doing, rehearsal. And I came home and she said, all right, put the kettle on. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm a star, hello.
Who I am?
She said, put some toast in there. And I said, she said, boy, I don't care what, keep that outside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I had that kind of grounding, and sometimes we never even discussed what I did because it was about the work process. So, and I was very much, in my mind, an artist, not a celebrity. For me, a celebrity these days, in particular, you don't know what they do. But I was into the art about it. The costumes that we wore was all, it was a very innovative time. You had loads of designers coming from universities and colleges and stuff. So I was around that environment. The club scene was really rife. It was like, wow, it was a funk club, soul scene.
What an era,
I was part of all that. We used to go to High Street Kensington Market, and it was great. And everyone was different and original. So,
and celebrated for being so.
Yes.
Lee, you are still writing and you're still performing. You've got a tour in May.
Yes, I have a big tour in May. We're going to be... This is the first time in ages. I'm looking forward to it so much. I don't even know what I'm going to wear on stage yet, But the band, we're starting rehearsals at the ending of January, so I'll be all over the country. So get your tickets at www.leejohn.com. That's with 3 E's, leejohn.com. And this February, I have a single and an album. The single comes out Valentine's Day, and the album comes out on the 23rd of February, and that's with Bill Sharp from the group Shack Attack.
That is brilliant. And before we go, because you were talking about your mother so much, you were telling me something before about your mother, so can you just tell me what happened?
Well, my mum, is celebrating, I don't know, she's going to be 97 this year, and she's been the secretary of the St. Lucia Association for many, many years, and she's also part of a community centre, the ACLC, and I want everybody, if you can, to make donations for the LCLC, which is in Turnpike Lane. It's a centre that desperately needs help. The council have let us down. Because of the COVID situation. So the
10 seconds left. So
the aclc.org.uk. Please go there. Please, we need your funds. We need your help.
Love that.
And come and see us on tour.
Check out the tour. Thank you so much, Lee. Really good to see you. And thank you for your company at home as well. Let's get the weather for you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. This weekend sees a change in wind direction to more of a northerly flow, and with that we will start to see Arctic air streaming down across the UK. Ahead of that, we've got this cold front slowly sinking southwards. This is a fairly weak feature, so you can see there's hardly any rain on it, some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle. To the south of it, though, it will be a fairly cloudy Saturday, quite gloomy in places. But to the north of that, though, some brighter spells poking their way through, along with some showers pushing to the far north of Scotland. Brisk winds across parts of the Northern Isles as well. Temperatures generally around where we'd actually expect them to be for the middle of January, between 7 and 8 degrees Celsius, but quite cold in the south though underneath all of that cloud. As we head overnight, that cold front will continue to push its way southwards, so again some very light outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A few clearer spells in the mixture as well, and where you do see some of those clearer skies, we could see some patchy frost overnight as well as some mist and fog patches forming. Temperatures where you're underneath the cloud just holding up just above freezing, around 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. Again, another rather cloudy day across southern areas on Sunday. Some brighter skies developing for Northern Ireland, Northern England into parts of southern Scotland. Those showers, though, in the north are now going to start falling as snow across areas of northern Scotland, bringing an ice risk as well, combined with very strong winds, severe gales across Shetland, potential for blizzards and drifting snow. Temperatures falling down as that cold air pushes in from the north, stretching to all areas as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, happy Saturday. Welcome to GB News on your Saturday lunchtime. I'm Dawn Neeson, and for the next 3 hours, I'll be keeping you company on TV, online and on digital radio, keeping you up to date on the stories that really matter to you, because you're the important ones. Coming up this hour, now, the United States has launched fresh attacks on Houthi rebels in Yemen, as their rebels vow the US and UK strikes will not go without punishment or retaliation. What does this mean for the destabilisation of the region, though? Then the Met Police say around 1,700 officers will be on duty to police the March for Palestine today. The government's independent advisor on political violence and disruption says marchers calling for a jihad should be arrested. Will we see any troubles in the capital, though? Such a volatile time, isn't it? And we'll be bringing you the very latest on the post office scandal as we interview postmistress who's plotting an election challenge to Sir Ed Davey. But this show is nothing without you and your views. Not about me, not about my brilliant guests, it's all about you. So let me know your thoughts on all of the stories we'll be discussing today. Email me on gbviews@gbnews.com or message me on our socials. Really simple, @GBNews. But first, let's catch up with the news headlines with Erin Armstrong.
Good afternoon. It's a minute past 12.